I realize that this is not your committee that Adam Mosseri is going to be testifying before, but this is an issue that you have long kind of been active on and been trying to write legislation to do something about. Just this week, Instagram went ahead and made some changes. Some of them seem like good changes. The idea that you're not going to be able to comment on someone's Instagram feed if they don't follow you, and that seems like a pretty good protection. But does this go far enough?
No, Becky, it doesn't. I mean, this is an area for the last 5 years, since we first discovered the manipulation by the Russians on Facebook and other platforms during the 2016 elections, when we've seen these whistleblowers come forward on a variety of platforms, the idea that we're going to leave some of the largest companies in the world to self-regulate is just plain crazy. Even the platform companies have started to say, at least in their advertising, they'd like some regulation. And let me go through this really quickly, but there's really 4 different buckets. One bucket has been privacy, where, frankly, the Europeans have already moved. Certain states like California and Virginia have moved. We still don't have any federal privacy legislation. The second bucket is more around pro-competition. For example, I've got bills around data portability and interoperability. So if you get tired of one platform, you could move to a new platform easily. Trying to make sure consumers know how much their data is worth. I got legislation, bipartisan legislation, that would prevent what's called dark patterns, and this particularly going to our kids, where you've got only one button to push, say yes, there's no way to opt out. There's a third category where there's a lot of legislation as well around what's called Section 230, content rules and changes. And then there's finally the questions around many legislators who frankly believe the whole business model needs to be upended, and that gets into the antitrust area. So those 4 areas are where a lot of the focus has been. But end of the day, Congress has to act, because Instagram, Facebook, Google, Amazon, self-regulating alone is not going to get it right.
Senator, you say a lot of these big tech companies say that they want to be regulated in their advertising. You mean you don't buy it when you say they want the regulation to be brought on?
On all these political websites, many of these big mega companies advertise on a daily basis, basically saying, oh, we're ready for Section 230 regulation. We're ready for data portability. I'd like to take them at their word, but that means we in Congress. And this does not, thank goodness, break down on a partisan basis. In each of those 4 categories, there's bipartisan legislation. We just got to get off our duffs and actually move forward. And I commend the folks on the Commerce Committee because there are some good senators, many of them I'm working with, on legislation in each of those buckets that we got to move on.
It's a pretty unanimous thing. Both Republicans and Democrats are mad at social media, some of them for different reasons, though.
Sure.
But the things that you're talking about, the Safe Tech Act, which is something that would hold social media companies responsible if anybody's harassing people online methodically, or if there's cyber stalking that's taking place, that seems pretty straightforward and something maybe everybody could get behind. Same thing with the Detour Act, trying to do things to protect kids from some of these behaviors. That seems like it's kind of hard to be opposed to. Why haven't they passed?
Well, that's a great question, because there's been lots of people pounding the table, but the process has not moved forward. And I think we are on the verge. One of the things I warned a lot of these platform companies was, you ought to actually work with us, because at some point, as Congress often does, if you don't work with us, we're going to get to the point and overreact and overdo on these kind of regulatory guidelines or guardrails. And I don't think we're at the overreaction stage, but I do think we're about ready to move. I mean, the Section 230, for example, where the Safe Tech Act, which basically says just because you're a platform company, behavior that's otherwise illegal, you shouldn't get a free pass if you are a social media company. That legislation was put in place, the Section 230, in the late 90s when these companies were just in their infancy. Maybe it made sense to give them that protection then. It doesn't make sense not to amend that protection in 2021.